Gunfun ZS here. I'm doing a Shooters and Reloaders coffee chat. This one was another one of the Fortune Cookies topics originally, and I just watched a couple from other people, which is, which gun of all the guns you have do you shoot the most? I had to think about this, and I realized it wasn't actually even a comparison if you went by the round count. It wouldn't be my first gun, which would sort of be one of a couple 22s that I spent a lot of time in my adolescence doing pest control with and plinking. It isn't what I would kind of think of as my signature gun, which is this sort of Mad Maxy looking raced up 12 gauge Kalashnikov. No, it's actually a gun that most of you people would probably look down on. It's a Taurus PT99 AF, which means it has automatic firing pin disconnect, and it means it looks like this. This pistol is something I got from my grandpa, and in a lot of ways it talks about who grandpa is a lot to me. Grandpa was always a super generous man and a bit of a horse trader. We did a family inventory on him, or rather my dad and uncles had, and it calculated that as of about 10 years ago he'd owned over 430 different cars, most of which he either ran into the ground or gave away because he was too generous for his own good. There's not a lot of heirlooms for my grandpa, and anytime he has a nice thing, he either tries to give it away or sell it for less than it's worth. And I never, growing up, was particularly aware of him having any firearms. Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. It just wasn't a big deal to him. He'd done the whole World War II thing, and to him they were just a tool. And he liked to have one around. Sometimes he had a little snubby revolver that was kind of the definition of an ugly snubby to me. Looking back, it was probably a J-frame variant or possibly a Taurus Model 85 that he kept in an oiled wool sock somewhere that would have been too slow to get at if he needed it. And then he sold that and traded it for this pistol, which I think was either new to him or barely used. I did a little bit of a search on it, and it looks like it was probably made in 1986. It's an excellent pistol, and people shouldn't talk them down. For my first 6,000 rounds of owning it, I didn't have a single misfire or any kind of malfunction. So, resuming, I was talking about this Taurus, which I got from my grandpa basically as new. While he owned it, as near as I can tell, the only time it was shot was when I took him out to shoot it. And I did a lot more shooting than he did. Again, that's very grandpa-like. This gun to me is an heirloom. It isn't a one-of-one Beretta Brigadier or some fancy edition, but it actually has a really good trigger. It's very smooth, there's no creep. I've had the pleasurable experience a few times of people who are raised in the, I guess you could say, the current tactical mindset, which I have nothing against really, other than when you put mental shutters on, who repeat all the normal stuff about how a Glock trigger is the perfect trigger, and they were kind of making fun of it. And they were like, well, and I said, would you like to try shooting it? And they're like, oh no, I've shot one before. And I was like, well, has it been in the last 5 years? And they do, and they're like, oh, that's an amazing trigger. What kind of trigger do you have in it? And I'll tell them, it's the stock one. And they just will be amazed. And I was like, yeah, you know, when you don't have rough shear cut metal as your sear surface, or if you're lucky, maybe EDM, and it's actually been polished and worn in, or better yet, honed in by hand, and you have hard metal on hard metal pivot points, you can just get a nicer trigger. I totally am not disparaging the merits of the same trigger pull every time. I personally like GASA. It's, to me, very easy to be smooth and relatively fast. Although I have to say I have not been shooting this gun particularly well the last couple of years, and it's frustrating to me. And I'm not sure what my round count is through this. I know I passed 60,000 about 3 years ago, I think. And I could probably work it out with accuracy. I'm somewhere between 70 and 80 if I remember right. I'd have to go double check. I keep primer sleeves. Before I started reloading, I had something like 10 or 12,000 rounds through it. And at the time I thought that was just extravagant. I can remember the first time I bought a 500 pack of bulk ammo thinking, this is like way over the top, but I was shocked at how cheap at the time 9mm could be. I think I got it at about 4.3 cents a round. Now I feel like I'm doing a good job to reload it for that. Anyway, I think it's an excellent pistol. A couple of years ago I was going to refinish it, and I realized, no, I earned that wear. That's part of its value. You know, not many people have shot a single firearm enough to wear the finish off of it unless they were abusing it. And me, I always took good care of this and have worn a lot of the bluing down. This isn't the original barrel to it. That got damaged. That's sort of a different story. And this is one that I bought off of eBay that frankly is kind of a half worn out barrel too, and I'd like to put a better one in it. But we'll get there sooner or later. It's so smooth. It's just runs flawlessly. Maybe 20,000 rounds into it, I started getting occasional malfunctions, and I realized, oh, the original magazine I had with it was worn out. And actually at the time, I had it with a Ramline magazine that had a constant pressure style spring in it that held, I believe, 18 rounds. And that ran pretty flawlessly up through, like I said, 10,000 rounds. And around 12,000 I started getting occasional malfunctions and not slide lock back, and then it just kind of wasn't working reliably at all. And I thought something was really wrong with my gun, looked through everything, and was like, oh, these are all magazine problems. And so I got some new magazines, factory ones, and some Mec-Gar, and ended up putting Wolf springs in those because I really wasn't happy with the spring life on any of those. Taurus sells their magazines, unlike Beretta, in 17 or 18 round versions in the same size that Beretta sells in 15, and if you load them that full, the springs die quicker. I think it's a worthwhile trade-off, but you have to understand it's going to happen. Anyway, I think a lot of the truth about guns in general is evident in this one, which is most guns are a lot better made than people give them credit for. And if you get to know any gun well, you'll discover that the gun shoots better than you do. And that most of getting good at shooting isn't getting a better gun, it's learning the gun you have well, and or maybe choosing one that fits you. This gun has always been a little bit big for my hands, but I've discovered it's done everything I've wanted a pistol to do other than be good at concealed carry. But at the same time, believe it or not, I can comfortably concealed carry this gun, and I did that for several years. Now I have something that's a lot more suitable for daily carry in my profession, but it's nice to have this, and this is one that my wife can shoot well. I've never seen anybody have a particularly hard time shooting this gun. Some people with small hands maybe find the grip to be a bit fat. Anyway, let me know which your gun is that you've shot the most, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. GunFunZS out.